Today in Curse Tech, we're talking about two cards that were literally made for each other. Ectoplasmer and Malice Doll of Demise. Roll the clip.
Say hello to the Doll of Demise! Extract ectoplasm!
So today we are trying to do exactly that. We are trying to make our own bad Treeborn Frog, our own Samsara Lotus. Yeah, if you tribute Malice Doll of Demise, I'll put the card text on the screen right now. If you tribute Malice Doll of Demise for Ectoplasmer, it can come back every single standby phase. This combo is much better in GOAT format when you have Card of Safe Return, but the question of today's episode is, can we upgrade this deck? Can we make it playable in Edison format? This idea was graciously gifted to me by Outback yugioh, the powerful dinosaur duelist. And by the way, have we stopped breaking dinosaurs? We gotta keep buying out Trident Dragion. You know, we gotta do more dino stuff, but that's for a future episode. Today we're talking about fiends. We are definitely talking about fiends. I also had some help from Pana, the virus duelist. This deck involves a lot of viruses, so I consulted with them and they were very kind and offered me some advice. So without further ado, let's talk about our crazy deck. And I do think there's some potential in some of these cards. Maybe not a Malice Doll, but we'll get into that. Behold my powerful deck list. Fiend, Beatdown. So basically this is Solidarity Fiends, and the logic is Malice Doll of Demise at 1600 attack, you know, it's not that much of a threat, but at 2400 attack, now we're talking. And you'd be surprised, there's actually quite a lot of good fiend monsters available for a Solidarity Fiend deck. First of all, we've got the 0 defense big boys. What the heck was that? I'll be right back. It was Giant Orc. It was Giant Orc the whole time. That's who just made that noise. I can't believe it was Giant Orc and Mist Archfiend that just made that noise. So yeah, these guys, they have big attack, they are fiends, and they are dark monsters, which is very relevant for a few cards in this deck. First of all, they combo pretty nicely with Ectoplasmer. You see, end phase effects, the turn player, they get to choose which order they resolve in. So, Mist Archfiend destroying itself and you taking 1000 damage, well, you could just tribute it for Ectoplasmer and your opponent will take 1200 damage. This sort of negative tempo that you're inflicting upon yourself is mitigated by the card Recurring Nightmare. This card is just a +1. You had two dark monsters with 0 defense from your graveyard to your hand. Kind of like a weird salvage. And it's very interesting because it counts the defense stat. So you can add big monsters to your hand like Giant Orc and Mist Archfiend. So it's kind of this interesting solidarity engine that you can throw in your deck that works really great with deck devastation virus. It works great with Ectoplasmer. It's not bad. It's kind of an interesting resource engine. It sucks that you have to go negative in tempo to do it, but that's where skill drain comes in. If you have skill drain on the field, well, the bad effects of Giant Orc and Mist Archfiend are mitigated. The skill drain doesn't conflict with anything. Also, why? Come on. Focus. There was also a lot of stuff I really wanted to work into the deck, but I just quite couldn't. One thing is Mad Archfiend and Mist Archfiend are Archfiends with 0 defense, so they can be added back with Recurring Nightmare, and they also work with the card Falling Down. I really wanted to make this work because with Falling Down and sort of stealing effects like Enemy Controller, you can again pick the order which they resolve, so you can tribute your opponent's monsters with Ectoplasmer before they go back to your opponent. Not that that happens with Falling Down, but you get the idea. Basically, the idea of stealing their monsters and then tributing them is really funny, but it's like so many things that have to go right piled on top of each other. So I couldn't really make it work, but this is the deck list I settled on, and there are still a lot of funny, strange synergy. So let's get into the games and see how fiends can do in Edison format by themselves. No help, just fiends. Okay, let's get into the duels. Now we have a match with the Fiend deck. This opening hand does not look very good. We're going to normal summon Mist Archfiend and just make one of the worst plays I've ever made. Look at this. We lose our monster, nothing changed for them, and we take 1,000 damage. Just incredible stuff. My opponent's just going to attack us for 1,400. Yeah, they do activate level limit, and this deck is actually very cool. My opponent was so nice, and you'll see the shenanigans they're pulling off in just a second. We draw another Grave Squirmer, which is not great. We're just going to set a Grave Squirmer, set a Solemn, and pass our turn. My opponent activates the Legendary Ocean, and we are going to have to Solemn Judgment this Kodaris just to preserve our Grave Squirmer, I guess. So they do keep the Legendary Ocean, and this is the synergy. This card works super well with Level Limit and Gravity Bind because it gets their water monsters under the restrictions of the Floodgates, so they can attack our Grave Squirmer, and then we decide to pop that Level Limit because we need to get rid of that thing. And then they're just going to pass their turn. We draw a Skill Drain. We're going to set a Grave Squirmer in the Skill Drain and pass. They just attack again, and we take out the Mother Grizzly. And then they're going to discard this Warrior of Atlantis for another Legendary Ocean, set a card, and pass their turn. We normal summon the Mist Archfiend, and they are going to Bottomless Trap Hole. And then, yeah, that's all we can do. We just pass our turn. We're not in a great spot. We set the Mirror Force, then normal summon the Diva. We're going to take 400 damage. We are getting very low. We activate Solidarity, normal summon the Malice Doll, and they have another Bottomless Trap Hole. They attack for 400, set another back row, Pot of Avarice. They shuffle everything back. We are getting very low. They draw 2 cards, normal summon the Warrior, and we are going to activate this Battle Fader. And then they Heavy Storm, and then they set a couple of cards and pass. We did top deck the Caius, which is just crazy, but we decide not to attack for fear of, I don't know, a Deep Prison. The next turn, they activate this Brain Control, but we do have the second Battle Fader. We are getting very lucky. We're just going to set that and pass. We set another card and pass. Oh, yeah. Earlier, I might have cheated. I wanted to bring this up because I summoned Battle Fader when I had Skill Drain, and I should look it up, but maybe I should do that right now. But I don't think Battle Fader will end the battle phase. I still believe it could summon, so I think I might have slightly cheated, but it will not really matter for the outcome of this game. Spoiler alert. So we are going to Bottomless Trap Hole. We have 1,000 life points. We're going to summon the second Caius, banish their monster, and they have Gravity Bind, which they've had for a while. We set this Malice Doll. They summon Kodaris, send 2 cards to the graveyard. We can't Skill Drain because we only have 1,000 life points. We switch this Caius. We're passing back and forth. They summon the Diva, bring out the Gilman, and then they may go into a Goyo. We can Bottomless that. They Mind Control. We DDV, but the DDV will not kill the Gilman because it's over 1,500 on the field. So we lose game number 1. No problem. We probably should have lost earlier because of that Battle Fader cheat earlier on. But, that's fine. Let's see what we can do in game number 2. Our opening hand looks very powerful. A DDV with a normal summonable over 2k. A monster is very good. We're going to summon this Doom Caliber Knight, set a couple of back row. Actually, just 1 back row, and then pass our turn. My opponent's going to set a back row and pass back to us. We decide to MST their back row, normal summon the Mist Archfiend, attack our opponent for 1,900 and 2,400, and then we can activate this DDV and send 4 cards from their hand to the graveyard. DDV is a ridiculous card. They're going to discard the Snowman Eater that they draw. And we know that they have the Bottomless Trap Hole. So this Recurring Nightmare could go hard, but we're just going to attack them for 1,900. And then they do top deck a D Prison. So this game is not going to be too easy. We activate this Ectoplasmer, we get them really low, and then we pass, and they draw a Bottomless Trap Hole. So we can't really summon this Mist Archfiend. And we can't really set it either because it has to be normal summons. So we can't really get this Recurring Nightmare live because everything would banish it. And we can't burn them for this Ectoplasmer. So we're kind of in a weird spot. We can't really finish out the game when we should be able to. We draw a Torrential, which is not great. They can summon out the Gilman. We summon the Giant Orc. They attack into the Orc, and then they will tribute the Gilman via the Ectoplasmer. We can summon out the Mist Archfiend. It does get Bottomless. Yeah, this game just goes on so long. We should have been able to finish it out so early, but, it just goes on crazy long. We just get all these resources back. They only have 850, but we just cannot clear out the game. We activate this Recurring Nightmare. We add these 2 cards to our hand. We can normal summon 1 and use this DDV, which is just an insane play I love having DDV with like normal summonable monsters. It's like kind of crazy actually. They're going to attack with the Gilman. We can mirror force it. And now because we know they have deep prisons and Starlight Road, yeah, we can just burn them out to win game number 2. Let's see how we do in game number 3. This opening hand is not good. No Malice Doll with Ectoplasmer for us. But even if we had it, like, would it have been that good? My opponent's just going to set a bunch of cards and pass their turn. We activate this Heavy Storm. They do have the Solemn Judgment. That is fine. We're going to set this MST and pass. We draw DDV. They're going to summon out this Warrior of Atlantis. We take that 2100 damage, and we're not in a great spot. You see, this Recurring Nightmare is really bad when you have 0 monsters with 0 defense in your graveyard. We're just drawing different parts of our deck at the same time, and that's not a great spot to be in. The second Recurring Nightmare is not great either. We brain control their monster, and funny enough, this will crash because this is getting 200 defense. So they're both 2100, and then they decide to pop our Warrior of Atlantis, and then we just set this Doom Caliber and pass our turn. They just set a monster and pass back to us. We draw a Grave Squirmer. We're going to set that and pass. The MSC, their level limit. Normal summon the Giant Orc. It gets bottomless, but we do have the DDV. This combo, I think, is the most broken one in the entire deck. Like, DDVing your normal summon that is a threat is insane. Like, I know there's the Virus deck where you set the monsters, but the fact that, like, Giant Orc can attack, it can do damage, and it's a DDV target, a very interesting engine. I mean, interesting in the fact that it's extremely toxic and unfun to play against, but, you know, it's interesting, it's powerful. We flip up the Doom Caliber, and then they're going to activate this Gravity Bind, and then they have to discard that monster. We are not going to summon Snipe Hunter because we have the Doom Caliber. We just keep drawing, passing. Yeah, we tribute summon Gores just to get the Doom Caliber off of our field, and then we can add these 2 cards to our hand. We summon the Snipe Hunter, and we decide to go after the Gravity Bind, but we miss. We actually miss. We discard the Giant Orc going after the Gravity Bind, and this time we hit, which is very good. And this is kind of cute that you can use the Recurring Nightmare to just get the hand advantage for the Snipe Hunter. I think it's an interesting sort of combo. And we foolishly go after the Starlight Road, which we knew was a Starlight Road, and then we miss again. What are we doing? And then we hit, and now we're going to need to hit this monster, and we miss again. But thankfully, last chance. Okay, so we are able to clinch out game number 3 with that final Snipe Hunter discard, but yeah, I don't know. The deck is in a weird spot. All right, now let's talk about the deck. I do think there is some powerful stuff here. The DDV stuff with the Recurring Nightmare is kind of crazy, actually. DDV is just, it's a broken card. It's one of the most frustrating cards in the entire format. That being said, I do think Malice has a lot of problems. The fact that, unlike Treeborn Frog or other recursive engines, if it's interrupted, well, the recursiveness is interrupted. It's not like it's going to come back and you can use it again. Also, it stinks that, like, they printed these 2 cards, the Ectoplasmer and the Malice, and then they just never printed any other continuous spells to use with Malice. It's like Ectoplasmer and Mass Driver are the only 2 spells that you can use it with. And, like, maybe if by Edison Format there was more good continuous spells, it would be different. But no, we're working with the exact same thing that people had in GOAT Format, and I don't know if that's really a spot you want to be in. I really like the idea of if there was more continuous spells, you could have like a Dragon Queen version of the Malice deck, but it just, at this point, it just doesn't work, basically. There's just not enough good cards to pair with it, and then you're hoping for these 3 cards to magically be drawn with these 3 other cards, and it can't be interrupted. So, also, Ectoplasmer just feels way too easy to play around in Edison Format. It's technically a negative for your opponent's tempo, but it's like you're laying a trap that will only go off in the end phase of your opponent's turn. Like, they have the entire turn to figure out a way to not fall into the trap. It's not a very effective trap when you're staring at it the entire time. It's like, yeah, they could just set a monster, they could just not commit until they can get rid of it, and if you're just using it to benefit yourself, well, yeah, it's a tricky spot to be in. Therefore, I think I'm going to have to put this deck in particular into the small possibility of doing anything. I did not win many games with the deck, and it was very frustrating to play in some ways, but in other ways, it was really rewarding. I think a a version of Fiend Control would definitely be powerful cardboard, simply off of the back of the viruses. This, like, engine of Recurring Nightmare getting back the virus targets is very, very powerful. Also, I want to mention that cards like Battle Fader, Exodius, these cards have 0 defense, and you could build like a crazy sort of fiend. Also, Caius is a fiend, but at this point, I don't even know if you play Solidarity, because Solidarity really works well with a deck that has a good resource engine, but not a lot of attack. And I mean, Giant Orc and Mist Archfiend have more than enough attack, so I don't know, it's in a weird spot where there's a lot of synergies, there's a lot of interesting stuff, but the exact sort of shell that it can go in is still something I'm hoping you guys can help me figure out, because Fiends deserve some love. There are some good Fiend cards in Edison Format, and Recurring Nightmare is just a +1 that needs to be explored more in this sort of shell. But the Ectoplasmer stuff, it's very cheesy and fun, but I don't know if it has what it takes to compete in Edison Format, considering it hasn't changed much since GOAT Format, and you would hope that with that passage of time, the engine would be better, but it's just about the same, if not a little bit worse, because there's no card of safe return. Anyway, that's pretty much all I have to say about the Fiend deck at this point, but yeah, I'm hoping we can explore it more in the future, and I love it. I do think that it's fun to take cards like Malice Doll and Ectoplasmer, because there are a bunch of weird, silly synergies that you can explore, and although the deck's never going to be like meta, probably, it's fun to try and make that engine as good as it can possibly be. And you know, that's what the series is about at the end of the day. I hope you all enjoyed it, and I will see you all in the next one.